your presence at this press conference, for your stellar leadership, for all that you've done on behalf of the American people. I'm also humbled today because of the moment of this day as we proceed in a couple of hours to the House floor to manage the bill that will finally bring this Congress in a very emphatic and forceful way behind the issue of women's health and motherhood. I'm just so proud to be in solidarity today with friends and activists and allies as we take an important step toward getting Congress to recognize postpartum depression. Over 6 years ago, when I introduced the legislation, I vowed that postpartum depression will no longer be cavalierly dismissed as, quote, baby blues, end quote. This afternoon, H.R. 20, the Melanie Blocker-Stokes Postpartum Depression Research and Care Act, will bring that classification, that dismissal, to a screeching halt. This Congress and our nation will now put significant money and attention into research, screening, treatment, and education for mothers suffering and surviving this serious debilitation and often life-threatening disease. H.R. 20 has 130 co-sponsors because it puts the interests of mothers and our children first. My legislation will include funding the Department of Health and Human Services efforts to further research postpartum depression and psychosis, depression during pregnancy, and depression from various pregnancy-related outcomes. It finances a national public awareness campaign to bring this illness out of the dark and shed light on how to screen and properly treat mothers. It adds, quote, depression, end quote, to the biannual reporting that the National Institutes of Health must submit to Congress. And it finances millions of dollars for hospitals and healthcare providers, advocates, and others to screen and to comprehensively treat mothers and their families. This is a good policy. This is a good program. This is a good public health bill. Before we conclude, or before I conclude my statements, I'd just like for those of us who are gathered here just to take a moment of silence for the many mothers and children who lost their lives to this dreaded disease called postpartum depression and psychosis. Thank you so very much. Lastly, let me just say that this bill and this press conference and this moment would not be a reality had it not been for a beautiful young native of Chicago, Melanie Blocker-Stokes. Melody, as many of you know, did not survive her battle with postpartum psychosis. She left behind her beautiful daughter, Summer Sky, and her husband, Sam, and many loved ones, including family and friends. Melanie's death is just a symbol of the many deaths of mothers and children, and they will not be forgotten because of our efforts here today. Melanie's mother, Carol Blocker Stokes, my friend and my constituents, and fellow activists, including Susan and many, many others, found a way for Melanie and many others to live on. I want to say thank you to all the groups who have gathered here, to all the groups who have supported this legislation, who wrestled your members of Congress to the wall, and you twisted their arms and threatened to run against them and beat them, and you've done all that you were called to do to get their support, including Melanie faxing your support letters. I want to say thank you to all the hundreds of thousands of women who have battled or will battle postpartum depression in some form. I'd just like to say, before I move on, Susan will take over. You know, when we were elected to Congress, we all took an oath to not only protect this nation, but to provide for this nation's future. For too many years, minority health, women's health have not been at the centerpiece of this nation's public policy agenda. We've taken some stabs at it, have done some great work at it. But I don't think America will ever realize its potential as a nation until it takes the health care of women and minorities into full consideration. This bill, this legislation, will indeed help America become a stronger nation, because it will help America realize its potential and to take some efforts, some outstanding efforts toward making sure that mothers in our nation are protected and they are secure, and that we love them in a way by putting our dollars where our mouths are. Thank you very much. The real leader of this effort, Susan Stone, will take over.
I'm a newcomer compared to you, Congressman Rush. Really. It was all mine. I wanted to thank you, Congressman Rush, for inviting Postpartum Support International to stand with you today as we anticipate a welcome moment in mental health history. Statistics tell us that up to 20% of women will experience a diagnosable pregnancy-related mood disorder. Many of them will begin in pregnancy, and that translates about to 800,000 women this year. That means that every minute a mother and a child begin struggling with the effects of pregnancy-related mental illness. But unlike those afflicted with cancer, diabetes, and other serious medical illnesses who will reach out and find established, researched pathways to recovery, only 15% of women with pregnancy-related mood disorders will find their way to help and treatment. The rest will continue to suffer the profoundly devastating effects of these disorders, sometimes paying the ultimate price of their lives. The consequences of untreated maternal depression range from chronic, disabling anxiety and depression to psychosis and death. On the infants born to mothers that are afflicted with these illnesses, the consequences range from insecure attachment, failed bonding, depression, behavioral and learning disability,